No, it's not supposed to be mute. No, it's not supposed to be mute. It's I'm testing my audio on YouTube now, listening on the other thing. Now apparently we can hear you. Ba da 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 da. Let me see if I can do the thing. Hold on. There's like a thing that I can do the thing. Hold on. I don't want to leave the studio. Minor, minor, mine. Can you hear me? Here's the secret code. The number is 69. Okay, so I'm assuming that we can hear each other now. Please, God. Now, it is, folks, it is not as though, and of course, it's like when I'm short for time, it is not as though I haven't had the experience of doing like 45 minutes of dynamic throwdown, truly feeling like we're getting to places here. We're working shit out. I mean, folks, it hasn't been easy, but it's been blood, sweat, and tears. But I may have revealed more than I wanted to. But oh, wait, you couldn't hear me, right? Now, and for the entire time, I'm gonna have that voice in the back of my head going, I can't. No one can hear me because I don't see the little mic icon on the friggin' thing telling me. So of course I'm gonna have to do this. I'm gonna have to go back to YouTube just to go and hear it. Yes. Okay. So now I hear myself again. So that's fine. So now, okay. So now I'm okay. I'm mollified. Bop bop bop. So, video number 3 on the game Scorn. So now look, meditating upon this simple game, and it is what it is, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It's not sold for 35 bucks. It's sold for small amounts of money. But the question is this: we have things written here. Number one, it wears its influences on its sleeve. It's a little bit of uh, Into the Odd. It's a whole bunch of Mork Borg, and we've got an attempt in the tyrants and the description of the tyrants at the end, and a whole bunch of stuff in the middle to try and give us what? To try and do Dark Souls in an FKR play style, which is supposed to be more narrative than it is supposed to be games mechanics. And with Charles Williamson joins us. Thank you, Charles Williamson, for joining us. Never trust a lawyer, especially not a rules lawyer. Boom. Um, Laudable goals. And we can hear an expression: aim for the stars. You may just hit the moon, right? And if it's not achieved, it's not achieved. But does it work? And one of the things that I've been talking about consistently is this: it's not just it's the combat, and it's whether or not the combat rules specifically, whether or not, and number one, I'm a primarily a solo player. So whenever I come to a rule system that doesn't itself contain its own solo system, we have to ask ourselves how much, how unique is it, and therefore how much new stuff do we have to do to solo it. When we come up and we pick up Morkborg, if we've already been, soloing, D&D modules, then, we come up against Morkborg and we see it's got initiative, it's got things that are different, but it's going to have things that we've already seen. So soloing it doesn't present that much difference. But if we come up against, Monty Cook's Cypher system that has new and different roles that are being assigned to players and game masters in regards to the use of experience or interventions or things, then we're going to have to ask ourselves, what new things are we going to have to do, and what changes are we doing that are going to be, and do those changes affect the fundamental system in a way that changes it so much that we are not playing the game, we're doing something totally different. That makes it, pointless to say that we're even, doing the thing. So when I've been working with Skorne, the question is looking at this combat system that it lays out. And here's the thing that I've been dealing with is, I'm kind of new to FKR systems. And so, looking at it, it's not as though, so this will be the first FKR system that I was, trying to solo play. So that's a conceit that I say, I have to give you context to say if I'm having difficulty working with it as a combat system, it's the first FKR system that I'm working with. I will also have to say, though, that, looking at the system and then looking at other systems, other non-dice systems like Diceless Dungeons by the James and Robin George, or the Diceless Mechanics and, Eric Wujak's, Amber Diceless system, there are mechanics in those systems that are not present and given in Skorne. So, looking at this, I have to say, I've looked at, where kind of the rules for violence are given, and they're stated. And I also looked at this section called the Apocryphon, where a kind of example of play is given. And I have to say, like, it kind of, to the degree that I'm having real difficulty with it, I have to say that this is a problem I think Sam Dobler, the author, kind of causes for himself, because we need to understand that where other FKR systems basically say, look, things are going to should unfold the way that they unfold, and people shouldn't worry about the rules. They should worry about the consistency of honoring the world and the dynamics of the realism of the situation, even under unrealistic circumstances of be careful what we write in the live chat, Charles. You know what I'm saying? That last addition to the live chat could probably do with a judicious removal. You know what I mean? Do me a favor. To the computers read things in very black and white. You know what I'm saying, my friend? So whereas another FKR game would say a combat could unfold and there might not be any dice that need to be rolled, because it might be self-evident to all parties in the room where things are going to lay between the three members of the Watchmen present and the scallywag thugs, where the author of Skorne puts himself into a position is that it's definitively stated that in combat, the dice will not be used. And in doing that verboten statement, even though in the Apocryphon, in the example of play, it's contradicted because we see them doing things with dice or asking questions about the rolls, I'm just going to get to it. Look, I'm running out of time here. It's 4:53, and I want to get out of here. I want to end this video in 40 minutes, and I've got materials that I drew up in here. So rather than be repetitive and cover things that I've already covered, let me just say this. I'm going to reread the sections on violence that we've already seen. I'm also going to read something that I haven't read before, which is the example of play. Then I will go through my notes that will include stuff that I've taken through from Micro Chapbook RPG. It'll include, basically, you'll see it'll be kind of at the end. If I go through things kind of expeditiously, you'll kind of get a snapshot of some of my solo play techniques, and hopefully, if you've got some kind of past knowledge of this stuff, you'll come to an understanding of some of my critiques and criticisms of the system, my understanding of the system, and I think you'll also come to get some value out of what I cover. Let me do this. Here's the thing on violence. Let me just do it to it. Violence. All actions are taken simultaneously. Damage is dealt in hits. 1 hit for simple weapons, 2 for martial weapons, 3 for devastating weapons, 4 for deadly weapons. Damage is instant, no roll required. Many systems have no rolls for damage. It's the fact that good positions and clever tactics increase damage dealt. Fine. Renegades have hits equal to 6 plus their strength, and we know that abilities are determined through a roll of 2d6. So we know that there's a given range for possible hits for renegades. That's valuable information to know and understand for the system. Armor provides 1 additional hit to the wearer, but is a bulky item. That's for regular armor. We see when we look at the valuables table that there is heavy armor that can take 2 hits, and we get a value for heavy armor, but there's no value ever given for regular armor. We also know that regular armor doesn't appear on the valuables table. So given the valuables table as is, you can never find regular armor. Okay, so that's just, criticism of, that's if I'm reviewing the item, if I'm reviewing it, and things that Sam could fix in the future that you might have to fix as a DM, or as Skorne himself, that is. Shields also provide 1 additional hit, but require 1 hand to use. When a character is out of hits, they are incapacitated. If they go below 0 hits, they are slain. Okay, when a renegade dies, do not linger, but instead call forth a new determined soul. Humans recover 1 hit after a night or day of resting. Meals help recover an additional hit. People carry as much as makes sense, but carrying 3 bulky items will hinder them. What is the effect of hindering? There's no movement rules. Well, it doesn't matter because it's FKR. I mean, oftentimes those things are not given. Time and fate makes fools of us all. Okay, I'm going to skip over magic for a second, and it is what it is. Okay, now check it out. So that's violence. Now I'm going to not read the Apocryphon for a second, but I'm going to go to where we see violence again, just so you can see what I'm talking about as far as possible contradictions, or where I have problems where I say that the violent system is difficult. In violent conflicts, and this is in the Skorne section, not technically for Renegade Eyes. In violent conflicts, there are no dice rolled to attack an opponent. Damage is simply dealt. Okay, so now again, is that so? So he says that there's no dice rolled to attack an opponent, but then it says damage is simply dealt. So are we saying there's no attack roll, or are we saying there's no attack roll or damage roll? It's not clear. Just by straight math, any player should be able to tell which side will win, the renegades or the enemies. As Skorne, you always want to give your minions the upper hand. Here are ways to do this. Okay, here's the thing. Once the renegades realize they cannot win in a head-to-head fight, they begin to problem solve. How can we increase our damage or our defense? Can we decrease or negate the enemy's damage? Should we try a maneuver of some sort? Should we use fire, magic, or a special item? Okay. So look, when I got to this thing, it was basically, and I explained in the last video, dealing with, combat or my questions about combat. It's like I was thinking about it more, and it was like I came up with this analogy of radiation. And the notion that basically you could come up with a calculation of, how much damage output you have, look at how much damage reduction the other opponent has, via armor and shield, look at the damage output of the other side, and then, looking at this, you could understand whether or not it was an impossibility or a possibility for one side to beat the other side, basically understanding that, the presumption of violence and violent conflicts in Skorne is that there are outliers in combat. We're discounting the randomness of, crazy chance of people doing, we're just basically think of it like as tunnels and trolls. In tunnels and trolls, one side adds up all of their damage output, but including rolls of the dice. The other side adds up all of their rolls of the dice plus their quote unquote personal ads or whatever. And then whoever, God has the most, they're the ones that win. They subtract the other side's numbers, and then that's the output, and it gets distributed. We'll think of like Skorne as that sort of violence, maybe, but without the die rolls. So there's no randomness of it. We're just figuring out, what output is. That was what I was thinking about it. But again, there's nothing in the rules that say anything about the distribution of the damage or how the damage is done. So it gets down to, is it rules light or is it rules missing? And, we want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and we have to, be also say, it's like, look, I've spent a lot of time with these rules. I can't say that I haven't gotten value of the money out of it, but we also have to be honest and say, we just don't want to pat people on the back and say, like, man, you knocked out of the park, and this is awesome, this is totally cool. Just to say that, we have to be like, dude, does this work, or are you just saying something that's fucking sounds awesome to say? Man, it's like, what we're going to do, man, is we're going to form a band, and it's going to be like the punk rock attitude of the Ramones, but the progressive attitude of Genesis and the political awesomeness of the Clash, and we're gonna get laid like Van Halen, and we're gonna do it all in the name of rock and roll. Right, like you describe all the amazing things that theoretically, but like when you fucking actually plug in the guitar, like does it like sound good, or do you just sound like, nah, you know what I mean? Like it just is what it is. So now look at this, look at all those things that were said about there's no damage dealt, there's no rolls. Now look at this. The following passage is an example of a session underway. It has no direct bearing on your game. Having traveled Skorne, this is the Dungeon Master, having traveled 3 days on your way to Gutscar Keep, you come to a fork in the road. A tall horned demon stands guard in full gold plate armor, resting a skull club on his shoulder. What do you do? Clovis, should we just sneak around? Bianca, no good. That old woman warned us to stay on the path. Don't disregard decrepit fortune tellers. Clovis, got it. I step forward and say, we are willing to pay for safe passage. Would 70 gold crowns do? Skorne. The giant stands in silence. Clovis. I quickly charge. That's dexterity, right? Skorne. Right. I'm going to say that this has decreased risk because the demon's bulky armor slows him down. A -1 for him. Rolls 2d6. 6 total. Now look, it says, I quickly charge. That's dexterity, right? And now look, it says, you're going to award actions that are clearly stated. What's he doing? He's charging the giant. That's dexterity? Oh, okay. But what is his intention? Is he attacking the giant or what? He turns out he's going to be trying to sneak around him. This is Clovis. So he rolled the 6 total. It says Clovis rolls 2d6, 3 and 4 plus 1 equals 8. I move behind him. So he's doing the dexterity roll. The charge was to sneak behind him. Okay, I mean, look, Sam's right in the thing. It is what it is. Skorne, you do that. Bianca, what do you do? Bianca, I'll use the power of fire. I have a feeling we'll need magic for this fight. Just a giant blast directly at him. I'll roll 3 dice. Clovis, please be careful. We can't break another seal. You'll be fine. You're behind him, right? Skorne rolls 2d6. That's a 10. Bianca rolls 3d6, adding willpower. That's 11 total. The demon is engulfed in flames, taking 3 hits. Now, again, no description is given for the magic. No description is given for how to calculate the damage of a power or magic or what effect is or what its range is. All stuff that's perfectly acceptable under the FKR, but just know that that's, when people say like that these FKR like rules or what's the point of writing, like, know that on the FKR Discord, they locked the rules section. And I think the reason that Jim Perkins, I think I'm doing his name right, locked the rules section was part of his like philosophically. It's like it's not about the rules, but that's like part of like the thing is like the temptation is like to say is like what is the point of having like a rule set, like a rule book, but it's what is. Anyway, Clovis, you'll be fine. I'll choke him from behind. Still on fire. Strength roll. Now, this is why I point this out. Here's the character Clovis, who's behind the giant. You'll be fine. I'll choke him from behind. Still on fire. Strength roll. That's him asking the Dungeon Master, Skorne, whether or not he needs to make a strength roll to choke the giant. And here is Skorne responding. No, he's distracted. The outcome seems pretty certain here. You're gripping him from behind and can take him down. His arms are flailing around as he curses. What's my point here? I thought we weren't rolling for attack. Damage is just dealt. Now, I mean, he's choking him. Like, what? It's kind of contradictory. When the guy asked Skorne, is this strength roll? Shouldn't Skorne have said, no, there's no rolls here. You don't roll for attack. You don't roll for damages just dealt. Or is it because it's some sort of uncertain action? But if it's some sort of uncertain action, then aren't we just saying that these things that he's saying about damage just being dealt and whatever is just kind of, it's just kind of funny things for him to say about, to prove that fucking FKR and non-FKR, and this is a fucking FKR rule set. And FKR is FKR, and we're fucking FKR. And damage is just fucking dealt because this is the fucking Dark Souls of FKR and FKR. And Dark Souls and Morkborg. And Hardcore. And Dark Souls. Right? It's just some fucking shit to say you're doing some shit. And then basically what I think you end up doing is basically by saying too much about an FKR rule set where you could have just said nothing about an FKR rule set. In regards to combat, you painted yourself into a picture, but into Charles Williamson giving a lot of energy to the live chat. Thank you, baby. Into it, but look, hey, I have obviously gotten a lot of energy out of looking at this game, reading it. Like I said, even before I did video 1, I looked at the rule set and I read the rule set over and over again, going, man, this is stupid. And Greta Van Fleet suck. And man, you're just a Morkborg fanboy, and we get it. You love Morkborg. And look at this, man. And look at this, man. There's Skorne again. Man, I'll read this on the shitter again. Man. But I kept on picking it up and reading it and taking it as food for thought. So what ends up happening is this. You look at this thing, and I don't know what we can do with it other than say, I think I've come up with a way that the combat can work, which is just basically understanding it as kind of radiation and looking at a situation where we generate the enemy encounters and treat the enemy encounters basically kind of like puzzles that have to be kind of solved without the appeal to violence, um, and especially without the appeal to violence that will only be successful through chance. And I think that that's the core of what, you know, based on, you know, what I was looking at with, you know, Sam's blog posts, where I think that, and looking at, you know, the extra language, though I think, you know, contradictions are created with what, you know, Sam was doing, is trying to do or describe with the, you know, the combat in Scorn. Though I just think that maybe it's just hard to kind of describe. Anyway, so where we end up is this: I want to play Scorn solo. I am a big fan of a game called Micro Chapbook RPG. And one of the things that I love about Micro Chapbook RPG is that it provides a great system. Here's an example of one of the games, one of the early games of it. It provides a great system for all of the rules work together seamlessly, from character creation on through random dungeon generation, and even all the way down through stocking the dungeon rooms, the randomly generated dungeon rooms with random enemies, including a formula for when a boss enemy will be naturally appear, and when items are dropped, and but especially when, you know, a boss enemy will appear at the end, kind of at the end of, after you've seen all the other enemies. And when I was looking at the thing that I loved about starting off with this formula of, and it has a great system for the random generation of rooms, including the random generation of room types with naturally occurring effects that kind of very naturally affect, you know, abilities that, you know, very oftentimes mimic build the standard abilities that we see in many standard role-playing game systems, and including, you know, door types that we see in that affect things or produce, you know, traps and hazards that we can see organically as interfacing, you know, with, you know, many systems, many types of role-playing game systems. So it's a great system to know and understand, because when you come up with a new game that you're trying to work with, having this, you know, knowing this system in the back of your head, it's very easy to use it as kind of a starting point to kind of, you know, push things, you know, into or work with. And I did that, you know, here with Scorn. And I think looking at what I have here, you'll see, maybe this will benefit you. That's the hope. Let me show you something here. Here's here's an example of micro chapbook RPG type table. You know, it operates on a D6 system like all these FKR systems do, and like Scorn does as well. So here it would have 6 tiers of enemies. You would roll a 6-sided dice after you've generated a room. You would roll at a certain point to determine what type of monster is in there. You would roll a 6-sided dice on a roll of 6. That would be your boss. You would only generate the boss if certain conditions have been met. Usually, if you'd seen each of the other beasts once before. If you hadn't, you would simply roll again. So that works very well for us in this scenario with Scorn, because we have a boss in the form of the Tyrant in the Scorn system. In addition to that, the Scorn the Micro Chapbook RPG has this ranked tier system that also has a kind of a natural distribution of when these type of other monsters appear. You know, like the tier 1 type of monsters only appear a certain amount of time. with the, they can appear only one of them, or they can appear, in groups. So you roll a d6 for these types. I fudge these numbers a little bit. The numbers in a micro chapbook game are a little bit different. I worked them to more match what I thought was fair for, Scorn. So I have a tier 1 type animal appearing either between 1 and 6 units. A tier 2 between, we'll roll a d4 to get the number of those guys appearing. For a tier 3, a d3. Again, we'll roll a d3 for tier 4. A tier 5 will only get one at a time because that's like a mini boss. And a tyrant, obviously, will only get one at a time. And here's the science here. Let me show you something. The science, our system that we're working with, Micro Chapbook RPG, needs 5 levels of generic bad guys. And then I wrote this. 4 of the 6 generic stats for enemies in Scorn are given in 5 levels. Let me show you what I mean here. They get strength scores, 5. There's 5 levels of dexterity, 5 levels of willpower. There's 5 levels of damage. Okay? Now look, there's hits, there's sizes. These 2 big sizes, if we ignore those because those are really, really big, right? We would see that we could use this as 5 too. So we'd see there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the standard, except for this category of armor, 5 of the 6 standard array of stats that an enemy can have can be thought of or broken down into 5 levels. So that works perfectly with the 5 levels or tiers that we would look for in this sort of D6 table. So Bob's your uncle. So I wrote here, but we don't. So hey, I'm walking here, so it's perfect. But we don't want it to be a flat plain city. So ignore sizes above the margin line for the generics. Tier 1 is always the worst thing ever. That'd be the first level enemy. You always it's like a slime or a mold in any sort of system. You're a sewer rat. You always make that the worst. But you want to have some sort of level of randomness. So look, here's. I won't worry about, like, I'll just talk to you about it. Here's a perfectly generic array, and this is in keeping with the stats in Scorn. Here's tier 1. 1, 1, minus 1, minus 1, minus 1. Tier 2, 2, 2, 0, 0, 0. Tier 3, 4, 3, plus 1, plus 1, plus 1. Tier 4, 8, 4, plus 2, plus 2, plus 2. Tier 5, 16, 5, plus 4, plus 4, plus 4. So if you wanted to just, see how you were doing against and start, doing imaginary combat scenarios, that's a perfectly generic, D5, or, and then put your tyrant here for D6. That's generic. But you don't want it to be perfectly generic. So look, you keep your tier 1 perfectly sewer rat slime. I created an enemy called the Beavis Frond. It's kind of like a fungal kind of leaf type of generic thing. Anyway, and then what you could do is you fudge the numbers a little to make some variety, so they're not just like bleh things. So so you randomize some things. And so here I have the rules for how I randomize the things. It's not really important exactly how I did it. For you particularly, especially because we are going to run out of time. But so tier 1, unchanged stats. Tier 2, plus 2 willpower, plus 2 dexterity. Tier 3, plus 1 dexterity. Tier 4, minus 2 strength. And then I said, and minus 2 damage if we roll more than 1 in a room. Tier 5, minus 2 willpower and minus 2 dexterity and minus 1 damage. And then step 1 is room size via 2d6. That's how we're going to generate the rooms. Step 2, door number is going to be on the number of doors that are coming out of a room is a 1d3. I didn't really do that. Okay, then here's the door, the number of doors. Oh, then it's sorry, I hit the mic. I apologize. We'll roll a d6 to figure out the door types. This is a modification of Micro Chapbook RPG. If we get a roll of a 5 or a 6 on the door that's unlocked, you can just move through. If it's a roll of a number 4, it's a stuck, so you'd have to do an opposed roll against Scorn for your strength. If it's the number 3, you would do a will check against Scorn if you've got lockpick tools. If it's a 1, it's the on 1 or 2 on Microchapbook RPG. It's trapped, and you'd have to do a check to disarm it, or it blows up and causes damage. But because we have this rule in Scorn where damage is done automatically, I thought we would split the difference. And so with one of them, with on a score of 1, it's trapped, and you can't disarm it. It automatically blows up and does 4 hits of deadly damage. But if it scores on a 2, you can disarm it possibly. So you could do a check against Scorn, but if you fail the check, then it would blow up. We have different room types. One of them has a minus penalty to everybody in the room, including bad guys and heroes. One of the room had a strength penalty in the Microchapbook system, but I ignore it because I was like, we don't need a strength penalty for things are tough as it is. It's modified things and no effect. -1 penalty on wits rolls, or not wits rolls because this is a different system, on willpower rolls, because why not make things different. And number 6, I have one room that I call Beam of Sunlight rooms, where it's a +1 bonus to player characters non-corruptions related rolls. You know what I mean? Like I just felt like it's because it's like everything's like shitty in this world, so it's like I felt like there's just one room. It's just type of room where it's like there's a Leonard Cohen song. It's like the Leonard Cohen song. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So it's like in these rooms, there's a beam of sunlight that gets in. That's goodness coming in. And so like the player character, if they're doing something non-corrupt, not evil, they'll have a +1 bonus to that because they get a break. Anyway, the Morkborg ripoff End of Times thing, I remembered this wrong. I thought that I think actually that Scorn does this better than Morkborg does. I remembered the Morkborg end of the world thing as being more concise, but it has like the same amount of kind of crazy entries. They don't describe it anyway. The broken seals table. I have this idea that I think works better, of where you figure out the 7 seals that will be broken beforehand. You get a better feel for, I think, where the narrative of the world is. And if the players and the people of the world don't necessarily know the order that the seals are going to be broken, but kind of know like what the story is, like what's gonna happen or what's supposed to be happening, I felt like it works better. So I had one of the seals already broken. So if there's 7 seals that are supposed to be broken before the end of the world happens, so I have one of the seals already broken so that we can figure out the other seals that I've already randomly determined by rolling on the broken seal table, the D66 table, so that when we break seals, we'll just roll a D6 to figure out which of these 6 rolls already get broken. But now check this out. I got a story to share with you that I think is kind of interesting. You may not think that is interesting. I think it's interesting. And we're coming up on the end of the story, and then we'll get to the kind of gameplay. I hope some of this stuff is relevant to you or might help you. I think that the enemies might, whatever. The first thing that I have, a gal I call my ex-wife. Divorce. I'm doing it wrong. So the old thing of having the lady luck blowing the dice. So I'm there with the Daughter of Darkness, And I say, hey, blow on the stones. See what we got, right? I explain to her. I say, listen, check this out. This is we roll on these tables, you know, we blah blah blah. It's the end of the world, blah blah blah. Check this out. It's funny. You roll on them. You blow on them. She does. We roll. I roll. I get number 22. 22 is my magic number. One of the big ones. So this one already happened. I wrote down. So we got a story to tell here. It's called Demon Call. Hosts arrive and hosts they become. So that's a perfect narrative story for what's happened to this world and why it's the end of the world already, right? And it was my ex-wife who blew on the balls before we rolled them, right? I got the magic number. Funny, listen, it's a funny story, I think. I guess he had to be there. She found it as mildly amusing as you no doubt don't. Is this thing on? That's what she said. Listen. I envision this world, this Skorne world, though clearly I don't think Sam Dobler does. When I envision this world that I'm coming to enjoy very much so, of Skorne, I'm going to continue to play. I started playing, and it started coming up with the world and kind of lore and a thing. Here are the enemies that I got. Here are the tier 5 enemies. I'm going to be a little bit late for my next thing, but we're going to go through this. Enemy number 1 is the Beavis Fron. These are my ranked enemies that appear on this list I got for you, the D6 list. Hold on, we come to the that we use to generate the rooms. I generate the first room. We'll tell you about the guy. We'll tell you about this whole story. And I'll tell you everything. We're gonna get to the good stuff now. So here's the enemies, the types of enemies that we're gonna see in this first place. Because it started, you generate the tyrant started as an amoebic concept and then started to come into shape. I rolled on the tables a long time ago. You got to follow all these videos to see how this thing came together. The domain was the council building. The situation was a robbery. The injustice witnessed was intimidation. The concept behind the tyrant was a commoner. Aspect was a leech, and the asset was a noble house. Some of these things seemed contradictory, but I started telling you about how the ideas started to form in my head about what was going on here in this council building. What was the story there? We'll go into it. Start to introduce you to the tyrant, tell you about what's going on there. Tyrant, the main the council building situation, robbery, injustice, witness, intimidation. Told you about these things. You know the contradiction. You use the narrative hook and the build point. Contradiction. Name, this is the tyrant. Neil Kane de Salad. Oh, by the way, our hero, his name is Abel. May it be so. Tattoos were listed as what he had. I gave it to him as a trade as well. He's a tattooist. Neil Kane de Salad, a little on the nose, don't you think? Leech power, with his hands on you and speaking in your ear, his vile nature and spirit sap your very vital essence and soul. For every moment spent in such a state, the renegade is cost 1 hit in damage, and Neil gains 1 hit, with no upper limit imposed on max hits available to him by this method. And they don't like reset after the encounter. So if like a guy goes in and fights Neil and Neil sucks all his power out, that's it. The next guy that fights him, Neil's got all that other first guy's power, dude. You're invincible. You gotta be careful. Brothers should be close, don't you think? This is another one of Neil's powers. So this power is when Neil casts a spell. When cast, Neil Kane de Salad can bring the renegade within the same room as him to within grabbing distance on a successful casting. At Skorne's discretion, renegade can oppose the roll with a dex save, possibly with disadvantage. You know what I mean? So Neil, when he's got his leech powers, when he's got his hands in you, you lose 1 essence and he gains the essence. He's got this power of brothers should be close, don't you think? He sucks you in close and then grabs you. Stats, here are stats. Stats are tough. 8 hits. He starts off with 8 hits, so he starts off very, very powerful, very, very strong. Damage, rings in you. He's got these like finger rings that they're pointy and they stab you. Untrained, 1 hit. So he hits you with the rings cause 1 hit damage themselves. So note effect of leech. So he does 2 damage to you. 1 point of damage from the leech power and 1 point of damage from these pokey rings. Sucks. His strength is monstrous +4. That's important because when you try to get away from him, you try and resist him or break contact with him. Dexterity is -2. He's a slug or leech of a man. He moves very slow, not dexterous. But his willpower is he's a genius, very smart. So he gets inside your head. When he's leeching you, he's not only leeching you with that the essence, he's also in your head. He's telling you just give up. Why are you resisting? Just go to sleep. Just stop. Just give up. He's telling you things. Why it just makes sense. Just stop. So anyway, so that's the tyrant. So and he's in this noble house, this council house. So I thought about this. So then all of a sudden, through this narrative started developing of this world. And I got to tell you something. So this world that I have, when we're inside this, whenever there's combat or fighting, the world looks like Dark Souls 3 kind of, or or Bloodborne. Like it looks very high fidelity and sophisticated, 3D rendered, like photorealistic, very, very nice. Okay. But whenever we're outside in the regular world with just the player characters in non-combat situations and not in the world of the tyrants, in the realm of the tyrants or their keeps, everything looks 8-bit Nintendo. I don't know why, but that's just the way that it is. I think it represents the goodness of the player characters and the player character world, and like the platonic ideals that they represent. So that's the way it is. So here are the other enemies. So the first enemy is the lowest enemy is the Beavis Frond, aka the Dungeon Leaf. It's pathetic. It's untrained in the damage that it does. It's got this thing called the whip stamen. It like when it feels a physical presence of like anything that like is warm enough to be a living thing, it shoots out this thing a couple of feet. So it's kind of like a reverse Venus flytrap to stab at it, and it's poisonous, and then drags itself to it to try and stick onto it. It's feeble, slow, generally immobile unless it only can move through this thing, through this process, and it's dim-witted. It's not intelligent. Doesn't have any psychic power. It only can move through that. So you can get it out of your way by tricking it to move, but it won't move through just movement. You can't move it through fire. It has to be like only warm as a body. It will only move in relation to something like that. And certain people are very, very allergic to it. So there's a chance that any given player character would be particularly allergic to it. But you can harvest them because alchemists really, 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 really like them. Okay? And there was a band called the Beavis Frond. That's why I took the name. Enemy number 2 is the old noble, new noble, functionless court functionary. They're weak. They can only take 2 hits of damage. They're trained. They do 2 hits they take 2 hits of damage because they're weak, and they can give 2 hits of damage because they're counted as trained with ledgers of title and ownership, ceremonial staff and rods, and books. That's what they hit you with. And they're powerful and swift. And these bastards swarm with one purpose, with word and deed, to stop you from doing whatever you are trying to do. And you can encounter up to 4 of them at a time. So they're just, they like nobles, but then, noble, functionless court functions at the time of nobles. So what's happened in this world, basically going on is, it used to be kind of like a ye old world of, innocent, medieval innocence. And there's this encroaching, bureaucratic, governance that seems to be taking over, and it's bad. And we'll see how it plays out. Enemy number tier number 3 are these people called the vacant sheriff's officers. They're hardy. They can take 4 hits. They're dangerous. They use various weapons and tactics from various distances for 3 hits of damage. They're swift, clever, and strong, and they're also armored for 1 hit. Though they can't, they absorb 1 hit damage. Though they're not shielded. They're incapable of being reasoned with, despite clearly being able to reason, right? They're smart. Enemy number 4 are the metal maiden secretaries of a state. Tough, 8 hits. 9 hits because they're technically armored, dangerous, sharp of body, and hands-on of approach. They're like you ever see those pictures of like Queen Elizabeth with all that like the ruffles and the thing, but it's metal, right, and sharp. Average strength, though brilliant and swift. And remember, they don't have to be too strong because they're just like, you know, living razor blades. And I wrote suits of armor, question mark, armored plus 1 hits. And it's the question mark about the armored. It's like, please God, let them be armored, because if not, the implication is that were these human beings turned into robots, or these horrible demon robots? Like, what is the deal? Enemy number 5. This is like the mini boss. You'd only encounter one of these at a time. An official titled individual of respect now. They're hulking, capable of taking 16 hits of damage. They're masterful. They can do 4 hits of damage with 1 blow. Just let me get my hands on you, I wrote as the description of what they do. They're physical. They've been mutated beyond all size. Monstrous. 4 strength, plus 4 strength. Though only nimble and clever. So they're not geniuses, but they're still highly statted. You can't just trick them, and they are still pretty fast. Not the fastest, not the smartest, but they ain't dumb and they ain't slow. And they have these, these massive physical attacks, and it's clear the lore behind them is that clearly they were there's something. They put some onerous and there was some value in this notion that they were maybe common folk, and they've been now blessed to be titled and given this great power, probably by this new government or whatever. So NPCs and the town. Let me tell you about the town that we've got. Okay, the town is currently called Blue Green Village, but it used to be called Turnip Town. The whole place changed overnight. Within Turnip Town, or Blue Green Village as it's now called, now it's a church, but formerly it was a shrine. They have a place called the Happy Hotel, but formerly it was the home of the wandering pilgrim, where people could stay for free. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Our own guy, Abel, the tattooist, had an establishment called Able to Tattoo. And it was our friggin' home. But one day he woke up and there was a bitch in his bed, and the place was called Aqua Henna Yes. The council building, which was formerly the home of Sir Frank de Salad, the former lord of this land, as understood by this simple people, by no means king, but by all means fair, and a solver of all problems under the old system we all seem to know and understand. Father of Neil Kane, amongst sundry others. There was also a general store, now run by the Town Council Co-op Consumerism Estate. What's that? Prices are double what they formerly were. Former owners of the Dufresnes, whatever happened to the Dufresnes, have disappeared. Houses of the people, these remain the same, though bewildering changes are afoot. Some other location. Fat Man Sam. I live in a Vardo down by the river. He's a friend of ours. He's a holdout against the change. There's space for two at his place, but it gets awkward quick. And hey, man, can you kick in? Sure, man, no problem. You can have the space right here, reasonably dry. You can store your stuff there. And obviously we could stay there, heal up. But don't stay too long, and you got to pay something. I heard the world is changing because people are changing it, and God is trying to tell us to stop them. And if we don't, he's going to send us all to hell. So he knows what's going on, man. He knows the score. Did you know that fish is good for you? Heal faster while in the care of Sam at Skorne's discretion. I'm going to say, yeah, I'm Skorne. Fuck you, bitch. I took the valuables table that's in the Skorne book and wrote it out so that I would have regular prices still available from wandering merchants and unchanged town general stores, so that we would understand, and I would understand, I could have at a glance kind of an understanding of what prices were. So where things were listed as tools, it would list tools as 10 gold crowns, and then it would just give a couple of examples of tools. So I didn't add anything that wasn't specifically listed by Sam. So there's not a lot to go on. And also tell you that at 300, that's when things went crazy, because if I wrote out all the things that were listed at 300 gold crowns, forget it. We'd be here all day. 400 gold crowns is the price for 400 for heavy armor that absorbs 2 hits, but no price is given for regular armor. So I couldn't tell you if it's supposed to be 200 or if it's supposed to be 300 or 150. It is what it is. So, if we get to a 2.0 Skorne, maybe they'll fix that. It is what it is. So it is what it is. Maybe I'll type this stuff up, and that'll be of some increased value. People can tell me whether or not this video had value to you. One last thing. Okay, check this out. One more thing, and then I gotta go, because I'm 10 minutes over my time budget, but I think that I did everything I needed to get in. So I started rolling up the rooms and getting Abel in. So here's our first room, our entrance. Nothing happened there. We had a stuck door. One guy going through a stuck door would be an opposed will check between him and Skorne. So I just said, instead of going back and forth, rolling the dice, I said, well, it just happened. I regret doing that, because if I'd actually gone through and seen how many rolls it would have taken, I could have resolved whether or not Abel would have basically worked out, you know what I mean? Like gotten exercise, maybe, or gotten exhausted, or something else. Anyway, then he went in here, and this door that he hit in here, he triggered a bomb, unfortunately. So there are 2 maidens of, what I call them, metal maiden secretaries of estate. Oh God, they're tough. They're in here. I did not have them get triggered by the sound of the door blowing. That would have been death for him, because the bomb going off took him down from 6 hits down to 2. The one thing that I didn't do yet that I'm going to do with you now is going down from 6 hits to 2 obviously warrants rolling for a scar. And we'll see what's happening to him. We're going to roll D66. The gray will be our 1's place. The red will be our 2nd place. So we've got 52, 52, 52. What's on you? Pyromania. As a result of being blown, Abel has developed pyromania. Can happen. I can see that. And we see how the corruption takes hold. We'll leave him there for a moment. And we'll contemplate how this has changed him. And we'll think about why this has changed him. He's taken it as what? A revelation, right? He's gone in pissed. We know that much. He's gone into the council building because this wrong has been done. His house has been taken away. This is robbery. And he knows that the council building was formerly the house of the good guy. And it's now obviously the source of this rot. But he's gone in and he's caught this massive L. But unfortunately, we're in the passenger seat, we're in the viewer's seat. We're watching this happen. Abel, we already know he's got the corrosion power. He's now a pyromaniac. We pull a tarot card for Abel and us as we continue our journey into Skorne. He can't take on these metal maidens himself with his own. We're going to figure out what we're going to do next. We pull the card of the sun. They say sunlight is the cleanser. The room where this has happened, that he's in currently, is a beam of sunlight room. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light comes in. That's how the light comes in. Sunlight is the cleanser. I greet this news of his development of pyromania as with fear and trepidation, but we don't know how the story is going to end. I drew up another character because I don't know how this is going to happen, if this guy's going to be able to do it solo. We'll figure out what's going to happen next, folks. Am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Let me know in the comment section below. Am I whetting your appetite for Skorne? Are you interested in this? Am I doing this well? Am I doing this poorly? Let me know in the comment section below. Does anyone else want to play Skorne? I'll talk to you guys and gals again real soon. Take care. Beware.